Buddhism is about waking up from your dream. There's many different terms for that, but the simplest one, the one I like best, is waking up from your like and dislike dream and then helping the world. So the sixth patriarch, who's a Chinese monk in the early part of the early 700s in China, he got enlightenment when he heard this one line from the Diamond Sutra: when thinking arises, don't attach to it, right? So don't think good or bad about it. So Tom's dream is not good or bad. You just wouldn't want to attach to it. So then when you wake up from that, you can use the wisdom from that experience to help the world. So Zen is all about waking up to your true self and then helping the world. So this morning we did this 3-hour keto that was done all over the world. It involved what, Tom? 242 people? Yeah, it was incredible. Incredible. So that kind of chanting like that, we did Kwanzaa Bosal chanting like we did at the beginning of our practice. That's about our vow. Kwan say Bosal means perceive the sound of the world. And the sound is, well, broadly speaking, is any sound, but it specifically, it refers to the sound of suffering, the cries of the world. So I don't know, I probably cried 3 times yesterday just listening to the news. It's so horrendous, like you design a route out of a city so that people can escape, and then you bomb the route. I mean, God, human beings are, our founding teacher, Zen Master Sung Sung, always said, human beings, number one bad animal. Okay. Well, it doesn't take much to perceive what that means. So that's why we practice. So I want to thank you all for coming here to practice this morning. If you're at the keto, great. That was an incredible experience to see, and well, you only hear one person at a time, but to see those people chanting all around the world for human sufferings. Very good. So any questions this morning? Any kind of question is okay.
Dick Lonsenham?
Yes.
This is Jennifer.
Hi.
So how do we, because I was thinking based on what you said and what Tom said, thinking about all of the news, and the news is always bad, but it seems particularly bad right now. How do you have any suggestions? How do we balance staying informed? Because it's good to be informed, but also not letting it just wear us down, because it's easy to just get bogged down in it and just, so how do we balance that?
Boy, I don't know. I'm trying to balance it. I'm kind of like this. Well, we're in lockdown from the COVID, so what have I got to do but sit around and look at the news? So, you might do that for entertainment, but you can see it's not actually entertainment. What you're, like you said, what you're mainly doing is looking at people's suffering. So that's also informative. That's what the Buddha saw. It's portrayed in his life story as rather abstract. He sees old age, sickness, and death. It's not a particular person getting old. It's not a particular person that dies. And it's not a particular person that's sick. So it's kind of floating up there in the clouds, but it's definitely there, right? And when you see that, like you see it in the news now all the time, one thing that does, like you say, it can rattle you, it can throw you off, it can be very disturbing, So probably every human being, unless you're utterly callous, like Putin, I guess, you're gonna have a reaction to it, And so that reaction is pointing you in a particular direction. So seeing those 3 things, old age, sickness, and death, is what pushed the Buddha to question, well, what are we about anyway? We're just about old age, sickness, and death, you know? So he got this big question, what are we? So that's the question that Zen practicing is based on. So I guess the war in Ukraine or the war in wherever, we seem to be fighting wars all the time. You don't usually hear about them so much, you know, like the war in Eritrea or something. There might be one story on the BBC about once every 3 or 4 days. But these wars are going on all the time. You know, there's probably a war, a small little war going on here in Lawrence. I don't know where it is, and I don't want to find out. But it goes on all the time. And there's a battle going on inside your own mind too. So, so what these things point to, besides driving you nuts, is they point you to this great question, you know. And so that's what made the Buddha start practicing. And then he wakes up, right? And then after a while, he realizes, well, the real meaning of this waking up is to go and help people. So that could be one, I don't know, one theme behind watching this news is it's going to remind you of what your big job is, right? So you can like the war, you can not like the war, you can think the Russians are horrible, you can think it just blows my mind. The Jewish Nazis that run Ukraine, I mean, it's incredible. It's so stupid. It gives you a direct experience of why we practice, because human beings think they're so smart, but they're the most stupid thing crawling around on this little planet. So all these, one theme behind that is by having these experiences, maybe what you see in the news, fighting with your brother or something, if you're not attached to them, then they give you wisdom, right? So I don't know what the wisdom that Tom got out of seeing somebody in a room being dissolved into dust is, but it could be impermanence. And then Tom thinks, oh God, life is impermanent. Actually, I'm just like that guy. So Wenda, seeing that I wasn't being affected by it, she was wrong. I am affected by it, you know, in terms of real life. So it's always looking behind what's going on to see direction and then helping. That's ultimately what the Buddha discovered. And so that's why we chant this Kwan Se Bosal. So Kwan Se means perceive world sound, and that's the sound of suffering. So Kwan Se is actually watching the BBC News. If you don't attack, you know, if you see what's actually behind it. But if you attach to it strongly with your like and dislike mind, it's just going to go around and around and around and around, right? Sometimes the Russians are winning, sometimes they're losing, sometimes the Americans are winning, sometimes they're losing. You know, that's true of everything in life. Comes and goes. So that's the wind blowing the dust off the whole earth, actually. And what do we got? 5 billion more years and our sun will supernova, and it'll be more than just a little wind in the room when that blows by us. So behind all of that kind of stuff is just this big question of life, great question of life and death. What are you? And the great thing about the Buddha is his discovery actually kind of gives us a kind of hope, you know. And it's our job to see what's behind that, so we can know for ourselves and use that to help the world rather than attaching to it and creating more suffering. Okay? Just made the news worse, probably. Any other questions?
Yeah, it's Kat. I actually have a follow-up question to my mom's question, and
Sure.
it kind of connects to Tom's talk.
Uh-huh.
So I guess maybe I just read too much, but I almost feel like it's like my duty as a global citizen to be paying attention to everything happening in Ukraine and Russia, and like the whole issue now in Texas with the anti-trans bill and don't say gay bill in Florida.
Right.
So I guess, what do you do when you feel like you can't help at all? And like this whole idea of helping is just smoke and mirrors. And also, like paying attention to everything that's happening doesn't elicit any hope. And then that's manifesting in my dreams. And maybe I'm getting too Lacanians, but like even when I like try not to think about what's
Right.
happening and separate myself from it, I still know what's going on because there's still that other. It's like it doesn't matter that I'm not thinking about it and I'm not trying to help because it's still happening. So it's
Right.
just this constant like cognitive dissonance, and I don't know how to cut through it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a kind of avoidance, right? So, okay, this news is really disturbing me, so I'm going to shut it off and not listen to it, and then everything will be okay. Well, it's not okay, right? So Buddhism is about letting go, like this one sentence from the Diamond Sutra: when thinking arises in your mind, don't attach to it, and then use this not attached mind to help the world, but actually wanting to help the world is a kind of attachment, right? We call that big attachment. So what really bothers us is this small attachment. You don't like the basketball team in Topeka or whatever, right? So that's going on all the time. So that's what we call small attachment. That's your like and dislike mind. That's what creates suffering, right? So then, but this bodhisattva vow, this vow to help all beings, is what we call great attachment. That's a big attachment. So that's Kwanseum Bosal, that personification of this great vow that is in our mind too. So I don't know what kind of relief that will give you. This is not a psychological game, It's about realizing what you are originally, your big self, your Buddha nature, and then using that. So it's not about detaching from what's going on. It's about letting go, and then using that mind that is let go to reattach in terms of big attachment, love and compassion for all beings, and then doing something. Right? Buddha Zen is always about just do it. So that Nike shoe head has an incredible amount of wisdom in it. Just do it. Then when you just do it, you're not attached to good, bad, result, no result, sitting listening to the news, or transporting arms into the Ukraine or something. If you just do it, you're not attached to like and dislike, then you can use that to help the world. But you're right, wanting to help people is not a very fun game, because mostly they don't want to be helped, right? So that's why we have this paramita called patience, because if you try to help your mom there, she might resist, actually. She didn't want her to do what you wanted her to do. And you perceive her that you're going to help her by doing this, and then she doesn't like it. And then you don't like that she doesn't like it, and she doesn't like that you don't like it. And then, that goes around all the time. That's a human being. So, but if you don't attach to any of that, then that lack of attachment to your like and dislike mind will allow you to see situations clear, and hopefully give you some patience. You'll be able to have patience, and then you'll see better what to do at any one moment. So what that is, I don't know. In fact, nobody knows, because these situations are always changing all the time. They change. I just heard recently they change. I was telling Dae Kwang Zen Master this the other day. They change 1 billion times every trillionth of a second. That's the new physics of this, what it means to be just now. So if you think about 1 billionth of a trillionth of a second, that's a fairly short period of time. So that's what we might call abstractly in Buddhism just now mind. But it's also changing very fast. So that's why you want to keep your mind clear, so you're not attaching to the past, you're not attaching to the future. You're just here, just now. And that's where you can do something. That's where you actually can help somebody. Probably notice you can't help anybody in the past, although you wish you'd done it maybe, but that takes you out of the present. So let go, come back to just now and do it. So that's the Nike shoe ad. I love Nike shoes. Was that confusing enough? Any other questions?
Zen Master Dae Kwang, this is Shuang. I have a question. Hi. Speaking of Just Do It, the other day I was listening to one of your Dharma talk from a couple of years ago. In there, you said something like, Just Do It is the translation for Wu Wei in Chinese.
Right.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that. The word meaning for Wu Wei is no action.
Right.
How come that means Just Do It is no action? Could you maybe say a few words?
Yeah, no attachment to the action. Yeah, so Wu Wei is, I assume it's a Taoist term that's borrowed by Chinese, Chinese Buddhists borrowed it from Taoism, and then they used it to in Buddhism, particularly it's big time in Zen. So to translate Wu Wei as no action is a mistranslation. It means no attachment to action, right? So many times this passive, interpretation of Taoism as kind of a no, don't do anything kind of thing is a misconception, in my opinion. Anyway, Zen Master Sung Sung translated that into English as just do it. In my opinion, it's a genius translation. Because when you just do it, you're not attached, you're just doing it. You know? So lately there's been all this stuff about basketball and all these great basketball players that transformed it in the 1970s, I think, maybe early 1980s. But if you're like Michael Jordan or one of those kind of people, the reason you pass them the ball at the last 2 seconds of the game, because you need to make a point, is because you're pretty sure that they aren't going to be thinking. They're just going to do it. They're just going to shoot the ball. And you probably experience this too if you play tennis or any sport. You can see it pretty clearly. As soon as you start questioning your abilities or questioning the situation or thinking the other person is a jerk, suddenly you lose the game like that, right? But if you can just let go for a second and then just do it, just shoot, just hit the ball, then it's much more likely that something, what we consider a good result is going to occur. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
Michael Jordan, you might not like him politically or whatever, but in terms of just do it, boy, he's a master. Maybe only on the court, though. I don't know. but you know, I've had coaches tell me, you know, just do it. Stop wringing your hands. Do it. You can't wring your hands when you're shooting a basketball anyway, so you're lucky there. Okay, so you know, you can translating from Chinese into English is a little bit difficult, I've noticed, but most Buddhists don't think that. Imagine well, we know the history of it a little bit, but imagine translating from Sanskrit, which is an Indo-European language, into Chinese. Now that was cool. Anyway, it's always going on.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Chuang Tsai, what are the tones of your name?
The first name is a third tone, so Shuang. The last name is a fourth tone, so Cai. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Oh, that's the end. Sorry. So thank you all for coming and practicing, and just do it. particularly when it comes to practice, you have to just do it because your mind is always saying, oh God, I got to eat dinner. Oh God, I got to go to work. Oh, blah, 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 whatever. So some of those things may be true, but some of them may be just checking. So it's important whether you want to do it or don't want to do it, that you do it or commit to doing something and then do it. Okay, thank you.